Hey guys, I think we're live.
We are live. It says live my end.
Awesome. I have no idea where to like preview this anywhere. I gotta find our chat.
Hey guys, I think we're live.
Turn my volume down. There we go.
Yeah, cool. I will.
Awesome, cool. So I have the chat up and everything. So what should we talk about, Mandy? Welcome to my channel, Mandy.
Thank you. I've never been here before. It's so lovely. I need to apologize for the fact that behind me is literally just mess. I'm in like our storage room, and I put this here because all my sister's birthday presents are behind here and I don't want her to see them. So sponsored video, Amazon.
Nice. I like that. I like Amazon, so it doesn't bother me at all.
I use eBay more than I use Amazon.
See, I don't know. I'm so addicted to the like Amazon Prime. That's all I use now. And I look at eBay sometimes, but I guess I don't look enough. I can't ever find like.
That's how I feel about Amazon. I'm old school.
You're the original MVP.
Yeah. I sound so intelligent, don't I? I would just like to point out to anybody watching that I've been drinking.
It's okay. Mandy and I are having some adult beverages.
We're having some witchy wine. Witchy wine. That sounds fun.
I see people are watching, but I don't see anybody in the chat. Say hello if you're watching us now.
Yay.
Oh, and let me share. I didn't share it to my Facebook either.
Yeah, I'm just posting it around.
Yeah, let's do that. Alexis Pone says, "Hey-ya, hey-ya."
Hey-ya. My voice is so much deeper than yours.
Oh, it's okay.
Compared to yours, I'm just like, hey-ya. Like, I'm just like a man.
It's okay. I have like a chipmunk voice, so
yeah,
it's no worries.
I always love it whenever you say my name in videos, obviously. But I love it when you're like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do an impression of you to you. I'll do it behind your back. But I love it.
No, everybody's like, Mandy. They make like the tiniest like voice they can ever.
Oh, funny.
I didn't like moderate this anyway. I don't know if we're going to get trolls. This guy says, are these chicks witches? Yeah, we are witches.
Witches with wine.
Wine and witching.
Oh, brilliant. I don't mind trolls when I have wine. Do you know what? I got to the stage as well where like I used to get a lot of hate and flack kind of thing when my channel started growing. And then when you got to monetize videos, I was like, well, brilliant, because the more negative comments I get or the more thumbs down, that means somebody's just come on my channel, clicked on my video, and bitches, you're paying my wages. Like, so bring it. Like,
I think it's really hilarious when people like downvote videos. Just the fact that like somebody will get on there and be like, fuck this video, I hate this shit. I think that's awesome.
It upset them so much that they have to make a stand.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I think it is so funny.
I'm an eclectic Wiccan. Mike, what do you consider yourself to be, Maggie?
Mostly just a witch in general. I don't follow like any like major like religion, but Wicca is something that I delved into quite a bit in the past and still kind of borrow certain traditions from still.
Yeah, I think for some reason I find the term religion really, really comforting. Like some people don't like that term at all, do they? Whereas I find that idea of structure really, really comforting in my life. And with all the different things that I pull from, in terms of my eclecticism. I don't think I'm necessarily any more Wiccan than people that just call themselves witches and Wiccan lends to their path. But there's just something about the idea of being religious as opposed to spiritual. Obviously I'm spiritual, but there's something there for me. I don't know why. I don't know why I feel the need to have some form of structure, but I do. I like to do
Well,
as I'm told.
yeah, well, I understand that too, because I think with religion you get a lot more into like ethics and morals and that type of thing, and like there is a standard that religions kind of hold you to in that aspect, especially like with Wicca, you have the threefold law and the reed and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really good whenever it comes to things like family, and if you're like raising a family in a certain tradition, you know, it is good to have that type of thing. But I'm so all over the place all the time. Like I hate to even call myself religious, but I don't know. I don't have a problem with religion. Like I don't have a problem with anybody that, you know, wants to practice any sort of religion. This guy said that he's a Christian, and that's fine. Like that doesn't bother me at all.
No, I think that
And
of all of the, sorry, I'm interrupting you, carry on.
go ahead. No, you go ahead. I was done.
Of all of the religions that I kind of know of and pull from, I think that Christianity is a big one for me, even though I don't take any specific deities from Christianity, because I was raised in a Christian family and the majority of my family are Christian. For me, that will always have like a very special place in my heart. I think it depends in terms of interacting with people. It depends very much on how they behave, whatever religion they are. You know, I never, to me, I couldn't care less what anyone's doing in their spare time, whether it's religion, whether it's sexuality, like whatever anybody's doing. I really couldn't care less. But it's about how people behave. When someone is following any form of faith that encourages them to be closed-minded, that encourages them to not seek answers for themselves and just kind of follow something blindly, that's the bit. And again, I don't have a problem with that for other people. It's none of my business what they do, but that's the bit that I can't kind of wrap my head around myself. Most religions that I've heard about, I think I would be quite happy incorporating some aspect of them into my path, but I need to have the freedom to be able to ask myself constantly what I think and call bullshit on myself at any point in terms of, sorry, am I allowed to swear on your channel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But yeah, just constantly question my beliefs and challenge my own beliefs and think, does this still work for me? Did this ever really work for me? And, you know, for me, that's how I get the most out of something. But I don't think that everybody has to be like that. And I think as long as you have something that makes you happy in your life, whether, you know, for some people it's religion, for some people it's, you know, like a diet or something that they can get really enthused about, like veganism or something, or whether it's exercise or a job that you love, whatever it is, it's you that has to live with you at the end of the day. So I'm open to anything.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think whenever you get into things, I mean, I feel like, and it's just the personal opinion, it's not an attack on any religion, but I know that, you know, certain religions believe that if basically it's their way or like no way, like they're the only ones that is right, and they do like really practice like a deep indoctrination in their followers and all of that. And like whenever you get to that kind of stuff where you no longer have the capability to like think for yourself, like you were talking about, like that's more cultish to me. That sounds more like a fucking cult, and you're just going and getting brainwashed and being told what to do.
Yeah.
Because the minute that you lose that ability to like think for yourself and use your own like logic and reasoning, you know, within the scope of the religion that it is you're practicing, then you're just participating in a cult, I feel like. And, you know, that's whatever. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I think that you should always question, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, particularly religious leaders. Like if there are people out there, you know, telling you how to live spiritually, then you should really like question what they're saying to you, and make sure that you feel okay and like it's something that you resonate with. And I think that's really important, just thinking for yourself basically. And that is something, being from the South and the Southern United States, and being raised in like a really closed-minded religious setting, it's really scary and it's really damaging, I think, to a lot of people. And it's not their fault. It's because, that's the way that they were raised. And, they were raised with this innate indoctrination of how they were supposed to act. And they like legitimately believe that, if you don't go to this church or whatever, you're going to go to hell. And like I said, I think that's just really damaging and traumatizing. And I think people lose the ability to think for themselves and make their own like moral and ethical decisions, because they just go to this place every day that kind of tells them how to think. And here, I mean, I've been in church services. I don't want to bash Christians, but I'm sure this applies to a lot of major religions, but I've been in services where they like tell you who to vote for, or they tell you, what issues you need to be looking at, and, which way to, think about this. Like they literally tell you how you should be thinking. And that's something that really took me away from organized religion way a long time ago when I was like a preteen. And I think that's something, I guess that's why it kind of left like a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. And not that I have a problem with any type of like witchcraft traditions or anything like that. I think that's why I personally have a hard time like getting into those types of religions now, because of the trauma I was inflicted on me.
It's totally different in the UK for the most part, especially where I live, because it isn't, there is judgment, obviously, there's judgment wherever you live, but that's not necessarily just surrounding religion, that's just in general. But in the UK, it's not kind of, I know that like you hear about places in America, or I hear about places in America like the Bible Belt, and we don't have that where I live. But everything you were saying, I think that, I mean, I agree with you for the most part, but I think it can also be completely role reversed, and it can, the same things can be said for us. Like, are we open-minded because we're open-minded people, or are we open-minded and think everybody should be free to choose what they want to because we've read so many things that say that, and that we've studied so many things that encourage that, that actually we're doing exactly the same thing? Yes, technically we are more open in terms of acceptance, but are we more open in terms of acceptance because of the fact that we have taken in so much information that says we should be? And really that can kind of be the same thing.
That's true. Touche.
Oh no.
That way, but that is true. You make a very good point there, Mandy, and you're absolutely right.
Hello everybody. Oh, and also Mike says, where in the South are you from?
I'm from the deep South, originally from southern Mississippi, close to the Gulf Coast, and I now live in Alabama. So I am definitely in the depths of the Bible Belt. So
why is it, this might be a really, really silly question, especially if most of your viewers, like there's another one under the moonbeams that says I'm from the Bible Belt. Hello everybody. Hi Noah. Hi Alexis. But what is, like, obviously I understand what the Bible Belt is, but where does the term like belt come from? Like, I don't understand that at all.
Oh, I think it has to do with like the region of the United States, that it's kind of like a line of states across the southern part of the country. So it's just, I don't know, just a large collection of states. Basically, if you're like south of the Mason-Dixon line, where the Civil War took place or whatever, then you're part of the Bible Belt. So most people would say like from Texas up to what, North Carolina. How far up does that go? Virginia, whatever that is. I'm terrible at geography. Yeah, just that string of states. I guess that's why I'm not really entirely sure. I'm from.
hang up my map properly. I bought one of those like large global maps to put on my wall the other day, because I'm horrific at geography and my boyfriend's traveled all over the place. So I was like, I'm gonna buy one of these maps. So I got one and I couldn't even hang it up properly. Now it's got a hole in it. So that's the degree of my geography, is a map with a hole in. Oh, Mike said Birmingham. I'm assuming that's me. I'm not from Birmingham. I kind of live like almost between Birmingham and London, so I'm kind of like in the center, so I probably have like a little bit of a mixed accent.
I gotcha. He may have been talking about me. We have a Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just taking the spotlight there.
No, that's great. I think about that all the time, how we have a Birmingham and you guys have one too, and obviously like ours is stolen from yours, and like probably nothing like your majestic towns or whatever that you have over there. But yeah, I'm actually I'm living in Montgomery. I know I don't sound like I'm from the South, and I'm not sure why. I watched a lot of movies as a kid, but that is where I'm from. I born and raised in Mississippi.
Bath, England. I'm not from Bath. No, I live in. I kind of live South Worcestershire. So you know Worcestershire sauce that you have, or I think you guys say Worcestershire or something like that. I don't. How do you say it, Maggie?
I say Worcestershire.
Okay. Well, yeah, Worcestershire. I've tried to explain to like American friends before, and they're like Worcestershire. It sounds like something from Lord of the Rings, and it is literally just Worcestershire. But yeah, so you said it right. But yeah, so I live kind of south of like Worcestershire, so I'm further down.
You know, I've always heard that the southern United States always retain a lot more of their like English pronunciations and everything. So I wonder if that's why we say it. We say things the right way, even though people make fun of us.
I love the southern accent. Some people on YouTube, like I don't know if you watch Sammy Valens on YouTube. She was Witch on the Rocks before. I could literally listen to her speak all day. It doesn't matter what she's talking about. She could literally be repeating the same words over and over again. But certain things that she says, it's like, I don't know, it's like meditation for me. Like the way that she says, and I'd like to hear you say it, I say something else, and she says something else. like,
Something else.
Yeah,
something else. Yeah, and she has a great Texan accent. My father was from Texas, so she does. And it's funny, I follow her on Instagram, and like all of her posts that I read, like I read it in her voice. You're right, she does have a great voice. She's really cool. And the who is it? The Witchy Mommy. Do you ever watch her? She has a really good southern accent too.
She's the lady with dreadlocks, isn't she? She's got dreadlocks now. Yeah. She's got it. Yeah, I really like the way she talks, because she's always so, well, I'm sure she's not always so happy, like she's a human being, and especially having a child as well, that's got to be extremely stressful. But I feel like when I listen to her, she's always like so, you know, and it just makes me so happy. I'm just like, give me some of that. Right? People who aren't local to where I'm from can't say, oh, I can't say that. Let me try. Okay, so do you know how to say that word, Maggie, before I butcher it? Okay, so
go ahead.
Say Demonbrun? Demon Brun. I don't know. Brun.
Yeah, it looks like Demon Brun. Demon Brun?
Demon Brun. I don't know. You'll have to type it for us, like the correct pronunciation. Like I did the fantastic job of saying Worcestershire.
Oh, we got it right. One of the things we said was right.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Native American spellings. Like where I live, we have mostly like French and Native American words, like for like places and things.
Yeah. I heard you mentioning the live stream earlier about Roanoke.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's more in New England. We have a lot of the like rivers and streams here are like 20 letters long and have like a bunch of consonants in a row. I can't even think of the one that I would like to say, and I don't know how to say most of them, but one of the hiking trails that we went to is called the Texachany, and it's spelled like TXTU whatever. I don't know. Really weird spelling.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I literally, when it comes to geography, you're mentioning places in the USA, and when it comes to geography, I know where New York is, and I know where Chicago is, and I know where San Francisco is, and LA, and Miami, and everything else, and I know where Alaska is, and everything else is somewhere in the middle. And I know where is it Philadelphia? Because because when I was younger, I used to watch a TV show. I think it was Philadelphia, Boy Meets World.
Oh yeah, yeah. What's it? Were they?
And I can remember looking it up, but I'm not sure if it was Philadelphia. But wherever they were from, I know where that is on the map. I can point that out.
Yeah. Well, I live, you said you know where Chicago is. I live like due south, like just straight down on the map from there pretty much. About 10 hours drive. 10, no, probably more than that, more like 12 or 13 hours drive.
It's so insane
But that's
that like you have things that are so far away. Because like literally from one end of, like I used to live in Southampton, which is kind of pretty much not as far as you can go. There are further places, but pretty much as far as you can go down south in the UK. And then to get to Scotland, depending on which route you take and how fast you drive, I don't drive, so I'm always just happy to be taken places. But you're looking at between kind of 4 and 5 hours. So and obviously that's kind of the border of Scotland. So then the further up in Scotland you go, maybe like an 8-hour drive, and that's like the whole country. Like you can do the whole thing in a day. Like you can go from one end to the other.
That makes me sick. And actually, I visited Ireland with a friend of mine 2 years ago. Yeah. And you're right. Like you could drive across the entire country in like 4 hours. And we would go places and people would ask us like where we've been. And they're like, oh, I haven't been there in years. I'm like, dude, it's literally like 2 hours from you. And you haven't been to this like
it's around the corner. Like, you can touch it from your drive.
Those people drive so insane, and those roads are like this big.
Ireland. I really want to go to Ireland, but the place at the bottom of the UK, it's not even on a lot of maps. Like it's when you have like a global map, like I have on my wall. It's so minuscule that you can't see it, and it's called the Isle of Wight, and it takes like between half an hour and an hour to get there on a boat from the bottom of the UK to get there, but it's still part of the UK. And it's such a tiny island, and it's always falling into the ocean, like the edges, and it takes literally like 35 minutes to drive from one side of the island to the other side of the island. And we used to go there all the time when I was little because my dad really wanted to live there. We never did, but it's just the smallest, but like you can literally just do the whole thing in like an hour. Like it's insane.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I always wonder how people who live in places like that, like how they don't all know each other. Because like it must be very strange to like go to a high school there or something like that and then end up meeting like the love of your life that lives all the way across the other side of the island kind of thing. Like I always think that's bizarre.
Yeah, that is strange. But I mean, I don't know. I went to school with my husband, and we're from a really small town, so I guess we have that like mentality too, like everybody knows each other and everything. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm glad I didn't go to school with my boyfriend, because I've seen pictures of what he looked like when he was younger. And don't get me wrong, he was good looking, but he was one of these kids that looked very, very young. So like, I don't think at the age of like 15, 16 or something, I don't think I'd have found him attractive, because I was one of these kids that grew really, really quickly. Like by the age of 8 kind of thing, like I had like that feminine figure and everything developing. So I always looked much older than I was when I was younger, and I was very tall as well. I'm only 5'8", but I grew really fast. Like by the time I was 10, I was like 5'5", something like that, 5'6" maybe. So I think if I'd have seen him in school, he would have literally like probably come up to here on me and just looked about like 7 years younger. So I'm glad I didn't know him then.
Cute. Just see, I'm only 5 foot, like 0, nothing. I just never grew any taller. But my husband was way more popular than me. No, I'm super short, super short.
I always wished I could be really short.
No, it's horrible.
I thought it was lovely.
I'd much rather be tall.
Growing up, I loved Christina Ricci. Like from the age of like 6 onwards, I was just madly in love with Christina Ricci, and I loved how petite she was, not in terms of like skinny, but just how like minuscule she was. And then another one for me was Eva Longoria, and again so tiny. And Vanessa Hudgens, like I like how people just kind of scoop them up and carry them about. And I always thought, oh, I wish somebody could scoop me up, but I'd need a boyfriend that was like 7'4".
Is your boyfriend tall?
He's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches taller than me. So he's about 5'10". So he is taller, but he's not, I guess, tall in comparison to some men. But he's tall enough. It's all the same when you're lying down.
That's right. That's right. Under the Moonbeam says she's 5 feet and she wishes she was taller to even out her weight. That's the problem that I have. See, if you like gain 5 pounds and you're super short, it looks like you gained like 20. And that's what sucks so bad about it. And I'm like really bottom heavy. Like I have so much like butt and like legs. I'm just thick down there. And that's where I gain all my weight first. So
because that's what like, because I have bowel disease, my weight fluctuates a lot. But when I was growing up, I was very petite. Like I had really like no breasts. Like I was kind of like nipple on bone and all collarbones. I was all arms, like because I was so lanky. But then I had these like thighs and this bum, and I was so embarrassed about it because at the time that wasn't popular. And I can remember when like Shakira first came onto the scene and like seeing J-Lo and stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, like the idea that there was curvy women in the media and on TV. I suppose not in the media because media was very different back then, but they all had these really big boobs as well. They kind of balanced out and I didn't. And so I remember seeing Shakira for the first time and how much she blew my mind because she had a very little chest and then these hips and this bum, and I was like, damn, like I look like that kind of thing. And that really piqued my confidence quite a bit. But I'm lucky in terms of weight when I gain weight. Like right now, I'm quite high in terms of weight, in terms of how I get when I put on weight with my disease. But I can put on an awful lot of weight because of my height before I actually kind of start to look overweight. Whereas when I lose weight, I'm still kind of like, I know you guys don't do stone. So like 140 to 145 pounds is kind of like the lowest I can get to before I start to look poorly. Because obviously being 5'8" means I have a larger skeleton. And so at 145 pounds, my rib cage sticks out and my hip bones stick out. And so it looks fine in clothes, but when you take them off, I look like a little old lady, and it's horrible. So I'm always kind of, I guess, when I'm healthy, like my ideal weight is around 160 pounds because I'm slim, but I'm not bony.
yeah, that makes sense. And I've had friends before that were about your height, and you're right. Like once they get too low, then you start to look like underweight, and then you just look like you said, like praying mantis arms and stuff.
I look like the little old lady off the end of Titanic. Like I'm like, that's not sexy. Nobody wants to spend time with that. No offense to that lady. Like, she's great. But also, like when you lose weight, you lose the weight, but your skin doesn't go anywhere. And so when I lose a dramatic amount of weight, I still have the same amount of skin. There have been times when I've lost so much weight, I swear, when I take off my clothes, it looks like I'm wearing a dress.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true. You're always lovely all the
A
time.
nice dress. It's fashionable. I love how we were like, oh, let's go on the internet and talk about witchcraft.
Well, I'm okay. I'm going to change the conversation.
Yes.
I was thinking about how you left me a comment talking about my channel and how you liked the direction that I was going and how it was like a lifestyle witchy channel and whatever. And I thought that was really funny because one of the reasons I like to do that is because I always loved your day in the life videos from like 2011, like however long ago. Are those even still up? Do you still have those up on your channel?
I don't have them still up. They're on my computer, but I don't have them still up. But yeah, the thing I love the most about your channel is, it's hard to put it into words. I love, outside of the pagan community, I like beauty channels. I'm not kind of massive in terms of following beauty gurus as such. It's like I'll look at those things when I want to know how to do something. But I really like the lifestyle channels. Like one of my favorites is Kira Rose. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a British YouTuber. She's vegan. She's fabulous. But I love all of those day in the life videos. I love the get ready with me videos. I really liked Freely the Banana Girl for quite a while, and the reason for liking her wasn't so much to do with veganism. I enjoyed all of her, like the types of videos that she did, and I really respond to different types of videos. And for me, when I come to your channel, it's kind of like if there were a TV, and I don't mean that this, I don't know how this is going to kind of like come across to you. Don't change what you're doing because I freaking love it. But if there was like a TV channel about a witch that people could kind of follow, like a reality TV show, then that's like what your channel is. Like sometimes you're sitting down and you're talking about a specific topic, and then sometimes it's you and your husband. It is your husband, isn't it? Not your boyfriend, husband. It's you and your husband. You're going somewhere. It's you and your dogs. And I love that because it's such a nice balance of getting to know you as a person and also hearing your opinions on topics or you teaching things. And that's really nice. And I kind of wish that I had more confidence in myself to be able to do that, not like obviously copy, but to be able to do that, because when I always worry that when I talk about topics that aren't witchcraft related or that aren't psychological or transpersonal psychological or anything like that, I always worry that people are going to be like, stop talking about yourself, like, you know, just show me what I want kind of thing. And I wish I had more confidence and a more interesting life because to be honest, most of my vlogs would not be anywhere near as interesting as yours. But I wish that I felt that I could do that on my channel, because I would love to do that, and I've thought about it so many times, and I just think, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm not this enough, or I'm not exciting enough, or I'm not, you know, all of this stuff. And I talk myself out of it, and then seeing someone actually do it with a good quality camera, with good quality content, and also you have that perfect balance of being able to teach certain subjects, but then at the same time holding yourself back enough and being humble enough to say, I'm not sure what I think about this, or I don't know enough about that subject to teach that. And so it's, you feel like you're getting to know somebody as a friend, but you also feel like you're watching, like I said, like a reality TV show, like something you can actually kind of fangirl over, and that's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's pretty much what I like to go for, because I really like lifestyle videos and stuff like that too. And so I wanted to do one that was more focused around, you know, witchcraft, but also, you know, like the art and everything that I do. And trust me, my life is not very exciting. A lot of that is just, you know, movie magic. So. And it's fun because some of those videos where I do like the vlogs and stuff, I have like a lot of fun like editing them and like creating them so they're, you know, look exciting and they seem like exciting and they flow well. And that's just, I like to do them because they're fun for me to edit. You know, sometimes whenever I'm doing just like informational type videos, which do get more views, like I get a lot more views on, you know, just generic like witchcraft videos, like, you know, like you do. But sometimes those just get kind of like stagnant to me. And you can only say the same thing like so many times in so many different ways before like, well, I've said this. I can't really like expand on this anymore. At least I can't until like I have like a new like revelation about that idea or whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love the art on your channel, and I'll explain why in a second. But I feel exactly the same. The videos that get the most views are the videos that look the witchiest or sound the witchiest. And yes, obviously that's something that I am very interested in. It's a massive part of my life, but it's not all of me. And so sometimes I feel, and it is me in terms of kind of holding myself back in terms of the content that I share, but it is me, it's my decision not to share too much, I suppose, because in terms of teaching, I always say this is my opinion, you know, you can choose to do this, you don't have to. But I sometimes I feel, you know, and I do suffer with anxiety. Sometimes I feel if I was to share too much about my personal life and somebody didn't like me, or somebody didn't like what I was sharing, that I would take that more personally. But in like what you said, in terms of editing, I love editing those vlog videos, because in my normal videos, in my teachy videos, or the videos where I just sit down and I talk about witchcraft topics, I tend to literally cut the beginning out where I'm pressing play on the camera. I cut the end out where I've turned it off, because I go, thank you very much, bye. And then I stop smiling and turn it off, and I look like a nutter. So I cut down. The rest I just leave. Sometimes I fumble my words, and that's fine. But with vlogs, I love that like choppiness, that saying, like almost going to the end of an entire sentence, and then you chop into the beginning of a new sentence, and it's something new that's on screen. And I just think it flows really, really well, and it's really, really lovely. I noticed that somebody had left a comment, so I'll let us get over to that, because I'm just rambling.
Yeah. Do you want to, why don't you answer that first, maybe?
So what was it? It's Wayward Wildflower said, any advice for dealing with family that thinks you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? Pardon?
Do you not know what that is?
No, I don't know what that means.
Okay, Cocoa Puffs, that's a cereal brand, and the tagline is, I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So it just means that you're like crazy for something. So she's asking, what do you do, any advice for dealing with your family that thinks you're crazy, basically?
Oh, okay. I knew what Cocoa Puffs was, but I've never heard cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Oh, funny. Okay. Any advice for family that thinks that you're crazy? Well, for a start, I've been through this. I've had a lot of support from my family in regards to my religion and spirituality and my spiritual path, and they've always been very open to that. But when I suffered with depression and anxiety very severely for a few years, and I had a therapist, I was unstable for a little while. I wasn't cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I was unstable for a little while, and so people did react to me differently. And then when I kind of came out of that, it was very important for me that people knew that what I'm saying is important. What I'm saying is real. It's not just me being depressed. It's not me just being anxious. It's real. I'm saying this. And I can understand why they reacted to that with some caution, because I'd said that before. But in terms of people thinking that you're crazy about anything, whether it's witchcraft, whether it's anything, I think the most important thing that you can possibly do is to constantly reassure yourself of your own beliefs and of what is real and what is important to you, and get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve you purpose, and so that you know in your head what's real. Because when enough people around you start, you know, pulling the face, you know, the face, the face, I get that. When enough people around you start pulling that face and they do the eyebrows, you start to question yourself, and it is really, really difficult So you need to find a way, whatever way it is, to reassure yourself, whether it is constantly checking in with yourself, whether it's challenging your beliefs and challenging everything about what it is that you think is important to you, but some way of checking in with yourself. And then in terms of showing people how serious you are, as kind of formal as it sounds, I think one of the best ways that you can do it is actually in terms of a presentation. If people can see how serious you are just about getting your point across, they are a lot more likely to take your point on as being serious. So I think that's one way that I would do it. Obviously, if people disagree with your beliefs because they're from a different religion or anything like that, there's nothing you can do about that. You can just always hope that in the future they will kind of come around, not to change their own belief system, but to be more open to your own. But really, you can never control anybody else. You have no input there, and so all you can do is make sure that you live your life by example, that you show what a good person you are, you show how you're benefiting in the best way from everything that you're doing. And unfortunately, it does take time, but over time people will see, actually, maybe that is quite serious, and maybe it's worthwhile for, you know, that person, because look how well they're doing. So that's what I would say.
I think that's a great answer. And I would say that most of my immediate family growing up, like as far as my decisions with like being a witch and all of that, were pretty okay about it. But I guess you could say that I hid that part of myself even up until recently in the town that I was living in. But I think that with what Mandi said, you know, just your commitment to your practice or whatever it is that you're, you know, doing, whatever it is that you're doing that, you know, is making them think you're crazy, you know, just continue with that commitment to it, and know that if you don't want to, you don't have to share that part of yourself with those people. If you feel that by sharing that part of yourself with them, it's just bringing about whatever it is you want to call it, you don't have to give up that part of yourself. And I don't by any means think that is actually like hiding part of yourself or like not being true to yourself by doing that. But you don't have to give away every part of yourself to, you know, everybody that walks by. And if it's people that like are personally attacking you, even if it is your family, that have like are personally offended by your life decisions and like spiritual choices, you know, they're the ones that should be more understanding than anyone else. And so just, you know, just don't make a big deal out of it. And if you don't make a big deal out of it, they'll probably, you know, just eventually go along with it or, you know, accept it as, you know, who you are, as long as you stay true to your commitment. And I don't know if that's counterproductive in any way. That's pretty much what I did personally. So
I think
that's my advice.
Really good advice. And also, like, again, whatever it is, I think that you have to, on the surface at least, especially if you're introducing something new, stay consistent in terms of what you reveal. So you don't have to stay consistent in your own path, constantly evolve, constantly change, do whatever is good for you, but stay consistent in the information that you share, because obviously it's difficult enough constantly evolving and chopping and changing in your own spiritual path without trying to kind of attempt to put that into words and explain that to other people, and that makes it more confusing for them and makes them think it's a phase. For me, not spiritually, but when I got kind of my tattoos on my arm, I've got tattoos all over the place, but on my arm was a really, really big deal for my mom. She was really upset that I was going to get tattoos on my arm. This big one here was the first one that I got in kind of like a visible place. I've got some wings on my back, but they can be covered. So this was like the first thing I ever got. And I had told her about it previously. I hadn't told her about the size of it. But I told her that I was going to get it done. And in fairness, I didn't know the size of it at the time. I didn't know how big it was going to be. I knew I wanted it on my arm. I know I want 2 full sleeves. I want a goddess sleeve and I want a god sleeve, or a masculine sleeve and a feminine sleeve. But she didn't know that at the time. And when I showed her, she was upset. She liked it. She thinks it's pretty. She thinks all of my tattoos are pretty because I don't have anything that's unattractive, really. But to her, I'm her baby and I came out perfect. And this idea that I've then gone out into the world and changed myself, she finds kind of very, very difficult to deal with. And so I understand that. But at the same time, me being consistent with how I introduce these things to her, with how I always tell my mom before I'm getting a tattoo, even though I'm a grown woman, I always say it first rather than show her later, so that she feels like she's included in some way. And I always say, you know, when I'm designing something, or when I've sent something to the tattoo artist and they've sent me a picture back and we're kind of going backwards and forwards in terms of the design, I say, what do you think of this, Mom, to go here? What do you think about that? So that she feels included, because even though it doesn't, logically, it doesn't affect her at all that I've got some tattoos on my arm, for her, it does. And so I feel like if I expect her to be open and accepting with me and my feelings about my body and what I wish to represent on myself, I need to be open and respectful of her. And how she feels about the situation. So I think it is double. It's both ways. It's a two-way street. I can so tell that I've been drinking.
No, that's true. And you make a very good point that most of the time when it is family members that are involved in something like that, generally they're just voicing concern, you know, for your safety and well-being. It's not because they want to be harmful. They are just concerned that, you know, that maybe you're acting out like this is because of said reason, when most of the time it's not that way. Like you're doing things because of your own like spiritual reasons or whatever it may be. They just get concerned because I think a lot of people tend to jump to, you know, like the worst case scenario when big changes like that happen with people around them that they really love and care about. And we have another question.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think that's fairly normal, because I mean, if you think about, you know, whether it's your parent or your child or your partner or your best friend, if you've known someone their entire life as one thing and as one way, and you love them how they are, and then one day they suddenly turn around and they say, well, I'm this now, it's like without your permission somebody has come in and stolen the person from you that you thought they were. And obviously they haven't. Obviously you're still the same person, but it gives you that feeling of being left behind. I know that when, and again, it's not spiritual, but when my best friend, I grew up, my next door neighbor, he no longer lives next door, so I don't know why I'm doing this. The guy that lives next door now is called Steve. He's irrelevant. but my friend Aaron used to live next door. And we grew up together and we went through pretty much every phase of kind of teenager and becoming an adult we went through together. And then when he moved out, it was a few years and he became vegetarian and then he became vegan. And I felt very much like he'd gone on to a stage in his life without me, because I'd always been there for all the other stages. We were like brother and sister. We did everything together. And he'd gone on to something new without me. And I felt left behind, and like the person that I knew and loved was doing something new and becoming something new, and I didn't know that anymore. And so even though I totally supported his decision and still do, there was a period of time there where I was kind of like, oh, you know, because I felt like I'd lost what I previously had. And I think you always go to that fear first before you acknowledge what you can potentially gain, which is now whenever I go and see him, fantastic vegan food. You know, I'm so happy he's vegan.
Oh yeah. So the next question is, Under the Moonbeams wrote, do you have any tips for getting out of a slump when you're feeling uninspired and unmotivated, spiritually and or otherwise? Would you like to go first, Mandy?
I can do. Well, I think inspiration and motivation have to come together if you want to get anything done. I think a lot of people, especially creatively, whether it is physical kind of arts, whether it's drama, whether it's artwork, whether it's writing, or whether it's gardening, whether it's building, whatever it is, I think they think about inspiration. But being inspired is one thing, but you're not going to get anything done unless you have the motivation to do it. So those two things have to come together. When it comes to spiritually having kind of slump, I think it's different. I think spiritual slumps are very crucial. I think people often view spiritual slumps as being times of feeling disconnected from spirituality and feeling less spiritual. For me, I view it as you go through these kind of almost like this mania of being so happy and so passionate and so inspired and so excited that you take in so much stimulation and so much information that it's so much that at some point you have to stop. At some point there has to be time for reflection, otherwise it's all utterly pointless. And so to me, a spiritual slump is just a different element in nature. It's that more reflective time of the year that you see in the seasons. It's just as crucial as all of the books that you're reading and all of the active practice that you're doing. So when you feel less spiritual, I don't think ever that you really are. I think it's more that you just need to be able to unconsciously and consciously take all of these things on and actually see how they work in life. When it comes to other aspects, non-spiritually, say it is painting or writing or gardening or something like that, I think that it is very much a case of finding something that inspires you and gives you motivation. If it's gardening, go to a garden centre, I mean, here in the UK we have castles, you know, old castles often have these large gardens and grounds that you can walk around. Go somewhere where you know that once you see those things, you're going to be like, ah, and you're going to want to go home straight away and you know, literally leave that place and go home and start work now. Or maybe it's your car and you've gone to a car show. Go and look at how other people are doing things. Go and get excited. Make it fun. Make that activity fun again. Take the pressure off. And you will find that once you stop trying to push yourself and you just incorporate that in terms of fun and in terms of excitement, you will literally be leaving events that inspire you to go home to create for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And usually that's exactly what I do. And I talk about this on my channel quite a bit because I'm the type of person that goes through a lot of like spiritual slumps specifically. And it's because of exactly what Mandy said. I get really manic about certain things and I will just completely immerse myself in, you know, one subject for like a certain amount of time. And then I'm just like automatically like burnt out. And I think because you have such a high at that time, the burnout from it is even lower. So you feel like really disconnected and you feel, you know, really far away from that point that you were at when you were doing so much and creating so much and, you know, connecting so much. But I think she's absolutely right. These times where you are kind of on the downslope are times that are just as necessary as, you know, whenever you're practicing very heavily. And, you know, if you just look at the cycles of nature, it's very evident that everything has a cycle. And that's the way that I like to think about it because, you know, that's what I connect to the most. You know, you have a full moon and you have a new moon and you have, you know, spring and you have fall and all that kind of stuff. And it's okay to allow yourself to have that downtime. And it's just important to have it as it is to have the time to where you're really practicing, you know, very consistently. But the ways that I kind of combat lack of motivation, I guess you would say. Like when I want to do something, but I'm lacking motivation or inspiration, is I will immerse myself in things that I find inspiring. And it sounds really nice when you say it that way, but it generally involves like watching a lot of YouTube videos on witchcraft, or I'll watch my favorite like witchy movies, you know, like Practical Magic, The Craft, you know, any of those that I love and I've always loved and I can watch a million times. And usually any number of those things really helps me to connect to that motivation and inspiration. And more so now that I've gotten a little bit older, I find that if I take time to like sit down and just meditate and just like force myself to do this, you know, just the act of like doing it, even if I don't feel like it, kind of helps me put myself back into that mindset. And this is something that I discovered actually through my artwork. I was having trouble with like artist block or whatever you want to call it, or not being inspired and all that kind of stuff. But I found that if I just sit down and fucking draw, then I will become inspired. You know, just the act of, you know, making yourself do it and just really practicing and trying hard to find the inspiration. Sometimes that will open the doors to that, you know, inspiration to come in. Oh, I lost my train of thought. It's just gone. Oh, I think that sometimes whenever you have like spiritual downtime specifically, or even like creative blocks and that type of thing, and I have a video on this, it could be because you have something in your life that you've left unfinished. And this happens to me a lot. And the best way that I can explain it is in the terms of artwork, but it definitely applies to spiritual practice as well. But a lot of times if I'm working on a piece of art and I hate it and I quit and just like leave it unfinished, I'll go into like this long period of art block. And the only way that I can really get out of it is if I just like say, fuck it, I'm going to finish it, whether it's, you know, hideous or not, it'll be done. And then I can move on. You know, that 100% of the time works every single time. And I think that if you have something in your spiritual life where you kind of hit a roadblock, and instead of deciding to move past that or figure out what it is or why it is you feel that way about that thing, you choose to ignore it. Well, the more that you ignore it, the longer that you're going to be off the path, basically. So you've kind of strayed away from the path. So you need to go back to that point in time when you first developed, you know, when you first got away from what it is that you were working toward, and trying to examine that and evaluate it and figure out how to move through it. And a lot of times if you do that, that will really help you like bring you out of that spiritual block, or you know, whatever it is that you may be encountering at that time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sorry, I was waiting to make sure that you'd finished. I keep butting in, so I wanted to make sure. I've got two things that I want to say. Remind me artwork after I've said this first thing. I totally agree with what you said, and I agree with what you said about the art as well, which is what I want to show you, because I'm currently sat in a room at the moment which has lots of pieces of my artwork, and a lot of them were from those times where I wasn't quite sure and I just forced myself. So I'll show you some things in a minute. But I think it is quite normal to need downtime, because you need it in every other aspect of your life, don't you? Like when you first have a relationship, for the first 3 months or so in a romantic relationship, everything is so freaking exciting and so like over the top and amazing. And then it kind of gets to the point where you think, oh, it's changed. Is something wrong? Did I do something? They've changed, you know, they're not the same towards me. No, nobody's done anything wrong. It's just you have to rein it in sometimes, actually reflect on what you've got. Any guy, you know, any girl wants to marry the person that they're with on the 4th date because they're so infatuated with one another. 5 months later, they probably don't know if they want to marry each other anymore. Not because they don't like each other, but because now they're thinking realistically. And I think that's the same in your spiritual path. When you do get into these states, and like you said, mania. And I think it's the same with depression. You have to go, you have to have a balance, and your body knows that. If your body, the most intelligent kind of aspect of you, your brain, your body, knows that you have to have a resting period every single day just to function properly, and that's unconsciously, then I think that it's, you know, you can't expect yourself to run on kind of full fuel, burning the candle at both ends in terms of being able to be excited and study in terms of spirituality or religion constantly, because you need time to sleep, you need time to just reflect. So yeah. And then yeah, I it's interesting, I've got some pictures, some of them are on the wall and then some of them are down here. And it's funny because this is my Sharpie art, which I go through phases with Sharpie art, and Sharpie art is something that it's not my general style. My general style is painting, and I paint sometimes with Sharpie art as well. I tend to paint first and then I do the Sharpie over the top. But it's funny because I was looking at it when I first came in here, and like some of my pictures, they're not similar to yours in terms of like looking like yours, but like the way that you draw like the lips of people, and you know, the different features and stuff, I draw similarly. And I wonder if that's actually a Sharpie art thing or if that's just a coincidence. But I thought I'd show you a few pictures.
Oh, that's pretty. I love that, Mandy. I really
I,
love
I
that.
I have a copy of this in my living room. I don't know why I don't have the original. I've got the original in the junk room. But I've got a copy of this one in my living room. I can't reach them all, so I'll only show you the ones that I can reach. This, I did all of these. These were kind of Alice in Wonderland inspired, although you probably can't tell. And I did all of these when I was I was exploring conspiracy theories, and I was looking at extraterrestrials, and looking at the planet Nibiru, and looking at the Anunnaki and different things like that, and then also incorporated Alice in Wonderland into that in some random way. But I mean, anybody that's ever seen my artwork will know that these are a totally different style to what I normally create. So for me, I often hate them, as any true artist does. I often just can't stand them. But like you were saying, you will make yourself finish because that's important.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, you know, that's part of the growth. You know, if you just quit everything, then, you know, you're not going to get good at anything. And you can apply that just the same to your spiritual practice. You know, if you just keep giving up, like, you can't build that skill. And a lot of it is, I think, skill. You know, it's not just something that comes naturally to everybody. It's, you know, hard work a lot of times, or it can be.
We've got a message from one of my friends. So a Cancer Rain Oak Moon. I just want to point out right now that she has the most amazing witchy blog on the planet. I'll send you a link afterwards, so that you can put it in the description bar. But she has such a fantastic witchy blog, whether it's like her own personal opinions, whether it's traditional things, whether it's recipes, like everything. You have to check it out. So I highly encourage everybody to check it out. But her question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your newbie witchling self at the very beginning of your discovery of witchcraft, what would it be? I think that's a pretty epic comment, isn't it? That's awesome. What, do you want to go first with that one?
Myself, to my newbie witch self at the very beginning of my discovery of witchcraft, it would be I don't know. What would it be? I'm trying to think what it would be. I think basically it would be to not be afraid, to be more open and receptive to the ideas, and to not be so afraid of every aspect of witchcraft, basically. And I think that I had a lot of fear starting out because, you know, the negative connotations that are connected to it whenever you're born into a different religion, particularly an Abrahamic religion. And so there was a lot of fear attached to, you know, me first like learning about it and reading about it, which was, you know, exciting as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it felt dangerous and everything.
You're not sure if it's naughty or not, are you? And you just kind of, you know, it feels good, but then you're not sure if it's kind of like a drug, isn't it? Like, you know that you're getting a high from it, but you don't know if it's a naughty high or if it's a good one, like exercise.
Yes, absolutely. And to kind of let go of that fear and the guilt, so like not feel as guilty about enjoying something that was ultimately beneficial and a major part of, you know, who I was to become after that, I guess. What about you, Mandy?
I think I would say I wouldn't want to spend too much time with me because I think it might freak me out. So I think I'll try and sum it up pretty quick. I think I would say expect nothing and expect everything. So
that's good advice.
Yeah, don't go looking for anything in particular to happen, but at the same time expect the possibility of anything, because on this journey, and it continues, it's not like I've got here and I'm like landed kind of thing, like it continues every second of every day. Obviously some things are hugely monumental and some things are so small that I don't even notice, and there has to be like a build up of those things for me to even acknowledge that they exist. But I think that I don't even know how to put it into words. I think that I'm really struggling with this actually. It's just changed my life in so many ways. I've changed my own life in so many ways. I do that a lot. I kind of give credit to outside of myself, and that's I've started recently trying to really acknowledge that and acknowledge that I need to take credit for myself. But I had no idea when I first started embarking on this journey. I don't think I was emotionally kind of prepared or even aware or stable or mature enough to even fathom the concept that this would be such a monumental part of my life. This is my entire life. You know, obviously I have many roles, just like we all do. For example, Maggie, you're a wife, you know, you're a lover, you're an artist, you're a worker, you have all of these different roles, but this is at the core of all of them. And I think when I first came to this, there was no concept of that. I kind of thought it would be like a quirky addition to who I was. I didn't ever think that this would be part of, you know, my entire life in such a monumental way.
Nice. I like that. We actually, I think we missed a question. The Song of the Winds from Australia. They said, how would you explain to colleagues that you're leaving to pursue a more spiritually based career?
Can I be really, really rude? I really need the toilet. I need my cats. So do you want to answer that question, and then if you can give me like 5 minutes so I can go to the loo and I can wash my hands and I can check on my cats, and then I'll be back. So if you can answer your kind of part of the question, then I'll come back and answer. Sorry, I really need to go. I've been drinking lots of wine. I'll be back shortly.
Go ahead. So, Song of the Winds. Number one, I don't really feel like you have to explain yourself that way to your colleagues. I'm not sure what type of job it is that you have or anything like that, or if it's one that is more kind of uber professional or whatnot. But I recently dealt with something kind of similar. I'm a cosmetologist, and I recently relocated to a different city because my husband got a job in a different location. And a lot of my clients and my coworkers and everybody asks me, "Oh, you gonna do hair over there?" And like, no, I'm not. I didn't plan on it, and I'd say that to them. They weren't very accepting of that answer, and a lot of them couldn't understand. And I think it's because they kind of what we were going back to earlier. Um, they feel like, for some reason, because these are people that you see every single day, and they're people, who care about you, and they're people that think that they know you, they kind of feel like they are involved in your life in some way. And because of that, they feel like, they should have some sort of say in the matter, when really they don't get to have that. They just, feel that way. And so people can tend to take it a little personally if you do something that is unexpected, I guess, especially whenever it comes to like a major change that is happening in your life. So, I decided to give up my career basically, and I didn't really specify what it was I wanted to do. I wanted to give up my career so I could pursue my career as a full-time artist. That's what I wanted to do, because this type of work is something that takes a lot of dedication day in and day out, and you really need a lot of time to practice that. So some of the ones that I felt a little closer with, I explained, that's what I wanted to do, and a lot of them were very understanding. But the ones who didn't know me as well as a person and weren't, they weren't really my friends. They were more, just well-known acquaintances. I didn't really feel obligated to give them like a full explanation. I just thought, no, I'm going to do something. But I mean, if you feel the need to like give them an explanation, just tell them that you're not feeling fulfilled in the current work that you're doing, and you really think that it would be best for you to do this other thing, basically, whatever it is, whatever it may be. You want to help people, or you want something that fulfills you more spiritually than just pays the bills. And it's going to be really confusing to a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand that. They think that life is about going to work and making money and working hard, but everybody measures success differently, And to me, the meaning of success to me isn't, making a lot of money. It's doing something that brings me pleasure and joy, and something that I feel is rewarding to me every single day. And I have the most fun sitting here working my ass off on my artwork all day long, so much more than I did at my old job, which I really, I value the time that I had there. I had wonderful coworkers. I had a wonderful boss. It was nothing against any of them. I had just gotten to a point in my life where I was like, this isn't exactly what I want to do. It wasn't fulfilling me. It wasn't fulfilling me spiritually at all. It wasn't expressing myself in a way that I felt helped me at all. And, not to get too dark, but all in all, like, you're the only person that you have in this life. You're born into this world by yourself, and you're going to go out by yourself. And so if there's something in your life that you feel isn't being fulfilled completely, then yeah, absolutely. Like, it is your prerogative to, fill that space in your life, to fill that gap in your life. And really, you don't owe other people any sort of explanation, as to why you're doing that or how you're going to do it, because it's your life and you do what the fuck you want.
I'm back.
Thank goodness. I just ran out of words.
Sorry. Okay.
No problem.
Let
Perfect
me
timing.
scroll to the question. So the question was, my question is, how would you explain to colleagues that you're leaving to pursue your more spirituality-based career? I would say that it depends in terms of how close you are, in terms of the relationship that you have with them, and how much they know that your spirituality means to you as a whole. If they are close to you and they understand that this is a big part of your life, then I would say that, like, if it were me, I would explain that there are certain things that I have a passion for that make me happy, and it's not a case of not necessarily enjoying what I'm currently doing, and I enjoy their company and I want to spend time with them as people, but that I found something that I feel fulfills me more, that makes my heart sing, and that I can't ignore that calling for whatever it is, because you only get a certain amount of kind of allotted time. I mean, I believe in reincarnation, but I also believe that within every incarnation that we have a purpose and a lesson to learn, and that, you know, within that time you want to do as much as possible in terms of making yourself happy. I think that there is, some people see success in terms of gaining money, and some people see success in terms of finding happiness. I'm certainly somebody that sees success in terms of happiness. And if you are lucky enough to be able to, and I mean, this is something that I've worked with myself and I'm striving to do myself. I have my own business, but it's still something that I'm very much constantly trying to kind of build on. You know, sometimes I do really well, and then sometimes I'm thinking, oh god, like I had such a rubbish month in terms of finances, and I find that very difficult, because even though finances might not be that great, I can still think I had a real breakthrough month in terms of the services that I was able to offer. And I think that is important in terms of work. You have to be able to find a healthy balance in terms of income and what's coming from your heart chakra, what you're putting out into the world, because that's something I struggle with myself. And I think you can kind of try and explain it in that way, that it's something that makes you truly happy and makes your soul sing. If it's people that don't really understand your kind of spirituality as such, I would suggest that you literally just kind of suggest to them it's like anything else. Some people might like hairdressing, some people might like accountancy, different things like that, and you just feel called to something that you personally feel that you were designed for, and kind of approach the topic the way that they would if they were to describe maybe the job that they're doing, that they personally feel like it's something they were designed for and that they were good at, and it makes them happy. That every time, you know, when you get into bed at night, if you know that you have done the most you can possibly do that day in an area that you feel fulfills your purpose and that you're good at, so constantly reassures you as a human being that you have value and you have worth on the planet, that's how I would say it, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. And you hit on a lot of the same things that I did about it, and I thought that was cute.
That's funny. This is what I mean, like, we think I often think this, and I'm not saying that I'm right, this is just something I think about, but I often think, you know, as witches and doing our study, we often think that we're so individual and that we're creating our own paths and we're doing all this stuff, and we're so far from this dogmatic structure of religions that kind of tell you that you all have to have this certain viewpoint, you all have to follow this blind faith. But then I think, are we exactly the same? Are we just another version of the same thing, whether we consider ourselves religious or not? Are we just doing the same thing? Are we still following some form of structure? And I think about that quite a bit.
That's true. I've never thought about that before, but I mean, that's absolutely right. And it really is exactly the same thing. I mean, you're still basically kind of being told what to do. So it's basically the exact same thing. Your friend asked another question. Rain Oak Moon. Acantha? I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry.
Acantha, rain, oak moon. I actually said it wrong. She sent me a beautiful handmade oracle deck that she made specifically for me. I made a video on it, but I previously made a video on aspects of self and discussing the different aspects of myself, and I guess she found something inspiring in that video and something in her kind heart to then create something for me, and she created an oracle deck based on all of these different aspects of me for me to use, and she sent it to me, and it was mind-blowing. I highly recommend that you guys check out that video on my channel, and then if you're wanting something custom, to get in touch with her, because I have sold so many of my different tarot decks and oracle decks over time that I felt called to purchase, and then when I've got them, I've been a little bit but that's one that I will keep forever, because it's me in an oracle deck, and I don't think you can ask for much more than that. And it's the oracle deck I use the most often. I'm more called to tarot than oracle, but when I work with oracle, that's the one that I go to, because it's, like I said, it's me in a tarot deck. So do check that out. So the question, actually I was going to say, when I first did that video, her name is Acantha Rain Oak Moon. I didn't know her at that point. That's how we made friends. And I called her Attica Rain instead of Acantha Rain. So I always make a point now to say it right. But her question is, you seem to like on questions, so I have another one if you're staying on for a bit longer. Can you talk about the first time you felt a real spiritual connection within your witchcraft? Do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
You go first. Let me think about
it. I'd been studying witchcraft for about 5 years, and I say studying witchcraft, when I first came to studying witchcraft, there wasn't as many books. The internet was nothing like it is today. Like, you'd have like one search engine, I don't even remember what it was, and I mean, you could type in like names of gods and goddesses, and you'd get like a list of gods and goddesses, and then like a sentence following that. Everybody was on AOL. That was the bomb. So this was the kind of time that I'm talking about, and so there wasn't much in terms of internet access, and so everything was really done from books. And there was obviously plenty of books on Wicca and witchcraft around, but not that I had accessible to me. I live in a very tiny village, and my town is very, very small, like the nearest town to me. So all of the books that I would research were either in school at the school library, which had a couple of books on kind of the history of witchcraft, or the town library, which did have more, but not a whole bunch. Again, it was more witchcraft than Wicca, and it was more a history. Now, at that time, I'd very much kind of decided that I was interested in witchcraft. Like I said, I've been studying for about 5 years. And one of my friends, funnily enough, her name was Sabrina, and she was a teenage witch. Ba-boom. But she looked nothing like Melissa Joan Hart. And she was, I don't know how long she'd kind of been interested in it. I don't know if it was because I was interested and she was my friend that she was interested in it, or if it was her own path. I don't know. I don't think she necessarily considers herself a witch nowadays. But we would kind of, at school at least, research together, and we'd both sit and look at these old witchcraft books and almost try and come up with like stories and theories behind the history, and kind of create our own style and tradition of certain things ourselves, because we hadn't got that information. And I can remember that the first goddess, and it was a goddess before a god, that I felt a connection to was Diana. And she'd come to stay at my house, and my grand's house. My gran sadly passed away last year in July.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it was bittersweet, because she had dementia, and so it was, we were very lucky in terms that she had dementia and it hadn't progressed to the point where she'd forgotten who we were. So we were very lucky in a certain, you know, in a certain way. But it was very sad to have her leave, because she was next door to me my entire life. So she was like another mummy. My parental unit was my mum, my dad, and my gran. But yeah, when I would have friends stay over, when my sister still lived at home, because my sister and I shared a room, my friends would stay at my grand's house, which is actually the house where my mom grew up. So my mum moved out all the way next door. So we would stay at my grand's house in the room that my mom and her sister was their bedroom. So I can remember being in that bedroom and writing kind of some form of, I don't know if it was a spell, or I guess maybe a really, really early dedication before knowing what a dedication really was, to Diana, just a conversation really with Diana. And I can remember we kind of practiced it the night before in the bedroom, and then went the next day to a field not too far from where I live, to where there's this area that is a swamp in autumn and winter, but in summer it's just this dried out kind of hollow, and it's actually really pretty because it's got trees all around it. And I can remember thinking at the time, you know, is she more serious about this than me? Because I was very shy to kind of talk to the goddess in front of my friend, whereas she was very kind of, you know, formal, and was very able to just open and be like, Diana, you know, and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't do that in front of somebody else. And that was kind of my first spiritual connection. Even though I'd been studying for such a long time, that was the first time that I feel like I really called out for any form of open channel. And I don't know if she felt that she got one or not, but I definitely felt like I did. So that was for me.
That's funny that you say that. I have a friend that is exactly like that. And our relationship, like spiritually, like working together is exactly the same, like to this day. Like she can just open her mouth and like say whatever, and it sounds very like renowned and everything. And I'm just like, and then like I'm so embarrassed to like speak in front of people still whenever it comes to that kind of stuff. For me,
See, I'm fine.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm fine in front of a crowd of people. I'm fine when I'm doing my courses, when I've done workshops. Cool. I could stand up in front of probably like a stage of like 5,000 people and talk to people. That's cool, because it's just me talking, and so it feels like I should be. But when there is just the two of us in that very personal environment, I'm just kind of like, it feels almost silly, and I get embarrassed.
I have that like silly feeling too. And it's almost like, it almost feels like somebody's like watching you go to the bathroom or something like that. Like it feels very personal like that to me for some reason. I'm glad I'm not the only one though. But
that's exactly how I feel. Maybe that's why I'm solitary. Maybe that's why I prefer it, because I just don't feel like doing that with other people.
I don't either. And even like I do some work with my husband, but even like when we do things together, like there's not a lot of like I don't like speak things a lot, because I don't know, I just feel silly. It feels weird whenever other people are like watching me. I feel like I'm being like analyzed, and I don't know. I don't like it. But for me, the first time I felt a real spiritual connection, so I started out 11 or 12, and just like you said, Mandy, we had like the GeoCities websites. Do you remember that? And like Angel Fire websites, like Webhost is what all of the like witchcraft stuff was on. You don't remember? Oh my God.
I don't.
It's
it
like,
could quite possibly be the same thing that I was using, but I don't remember. I just literally remember the internet at that time was either AOL, or if you weren't using AOL, everything was just white, and it was so like simple. Everything was just a list.
Exactly. It was exactly like that. So, and you couldn't find a lot of information, like you said. So, one of the first books I think I got was like Teen Witch by Silver Ravenwolf, you know. But that actually has nothing to do with that. I think I was about 13, I believe. I think I was in like 8th grade before I went to high school. But like me and two of my friends who were both into witchcraft, you know, we would do things together. We would have little circles and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, it was fun. And like we said before, it felt like dangerous, like we were doing something kind of bad and all that. And it was a lot of fun. But one night we actually, the three of us had, I guess, basically what you would call like a spontaneous past life regression. And it was like something, it was super intense. And it happened to all three of us like simultaneously. And the only way that I can explain it is that we were doing a circle or something like that. I don't even remember like what the point of what it was that we were doing. But we eventually, I recall it going into like this kind of trance-like state and like seeing these like images of a past life, which I know sounds kind of weird. I don't know if a lot of people you know, believe in that kind of thing. I do. And, you know, this is something that happened to me. But we knew each other in a past life. And I don't even know how to explain how it happened. But like once we kind of came out of the trance and everything was all over with, we had this conversation where we each saw like the same visions of a lifetime that we shared together in the past. And it was also similar, and it's something that still really resonates with me today, and it's something that I still identify with. But that was probably like the very first like really profound spiritual connection that I felt. And I know it doesn't have a lot to do with like actual like spirit or divinity or anything like that, but it was one of the things that made me feel like, shit, you know, this is for real. Like this is really happening right now. And I think it was because I had that validation of, you know, not one, but two other people that had the exact same thing that happened to them. That's whenever I really felt very connected. But I was one of those really weird kids who thought that I was magical when I was a kid anyways. Like I felt like, you know, if I tried hard enough, I could like control the rain or the wind or something like that. Like, I was one of those kids that was like really weird and nerdy. And like my favorite game to play
one of
was
those kids that wanted to be weird but wasn't really that weird. Like in high school especially, I wanted to be Nancy from The Craft. Like I wanted to be the weirdo that everybody kind of looked at and was like, you know, I don't want her hanging out with us, but at the same time, what's she doing? Like, you know, like, keep an eye on her. Like I don't think I was actually that unique at all, but I wanted to be.
I was pretty weird. I was a much weirder, like smaller child. Like in high school, I was just kind of a jerk, I think. We had kind of that like the craft thing going for us. You know, we had a little group of like me and my friends, and we were witches, and like the whole school whispered about us and all that stuff. But and we were actually like a little more like notorious than I felt like we were. We weren't really like going for that, but I think it kind of ended up that way.
Well, that's quite
a lot
nice.
of people
Good about you, because in my school they used to shout at me. Oh, funny.
The students were pretty cool. We had some issues with like teachers and that kind of thing, but that was it.
I've never ever had a past life regression experience myself. I've had plenty of people who do that as a term of service that offer that to me, whether it's been people that I've worked with in person with the holistic therapies that I offer, or people that I've done different services for online that have offered to kind of come to me. It's never been something that, it's not that I'm not interested, because I do believe in reincarnation. For me personally, my view, and this could always change, like I always say that my views can always change, so don't hold me to anything I'm saying now in 5 years time, but my view has always been that if I was meant to remember, I naturally would, either like you, in some form of scenario it would come through for me, or I would have been born in this lifetime with that information. So I don't really feel the desire necessarily to go looking for it, mainly because I have a view that when, and this is just my view, like I have no proof on this whatsoever, so don't base your beliefs around what I'm saying, kind of thing. I very much do believe that when we reincarnate, that we have a choice where we come down to. We don't necessarily know exactly how the course of that life is going to play out. But just like when you're reading tarot for somebody, sometimes you can look at all the different elements and see the most likely outcome. Obviously, that can be changed based on somebody's actions at any point, but you can see the most likely outcome. You know that if you are born into a wealthy family, for example, that your life is going to be different than if you are born into extreme poverty. You know that if you are born into a third world country, that your life is going to be very, very different. And so I do believe that we have the ability to choose where we go. Now, lots of people disagree with me on that, and that's totally cool. I think that I've come to that conclusion because when I see all of the different kind of devastations and tragedies in the world that seem so unfair, I think that to me it makes sense that if we are all meant to experience everything before we can kind of ascend and stop reincarnating, before we are enlightened, then it's fair if every single soul that ever exists is going to experience it. So sometimes we're going to be born with disabilities or illnesses. Sometimes we're only going to have extremely short lives. Like when you hear about children and horrific things, that either they've died from terminal illnesses or they've died in horrific like school shootings and things that you hear about, it just makes your skin crawl. And you know, you think, who would do that? But then at the same time, I think if we were all meant to be kings and queens, we all experience being slaves, we all experience being rapists, we all experience being absolutely everything, then I think that gives this fair balance. And this is, like I said, this is just my opinion. I have no proof whatsoever. And so to me, when I think of reincarnation, I think of maybe each time that we go back to our source, that we choose a path that is most likely to lead to the lessons that we still have to gain. And so that would look different each time. But I think sometimes people do come in with the knowledge of previous lifetimes because that will add to their lesson this time around, whereas sometimes they won't. I don't have any knowledge of any previous lives within this lifetime. I don't have any desire currently, maybe I will in the future, but I don't have any desire currently and never had to discover any previous lives for myself in this lifetime. And I think that adds to it as well. I think, you know, whether it's extrasensory abilities, whether it's a desire to know something about a previous life, or like in your case, Maggie, having something just come through, I think that that's all part of the learning experience.
Very cool. I like that. No, I can agree with that.
Like I said, don't hold me to it. I've got no proof.
Well, does anybody have any more questions for us?
Yes, throw us questions. I would like, Maggie, if it's okay with you, I know that you showed us your artwork in your previous video that you did already today. Can you, this is for me, I don't know if anybody else cares, but I'm interested. So I was watching your video that you did where you create all of these lines so that you can have everything like symmetrical and lovely on you. I never do that. I just freehand like a nutter. Where did that kind of come from, and what service do you think, like what does that in
like
terms,
why do I do that?
Yeah, but like
okay,
your kind of spiritual practice, obviously your work is very kind of spiritual and it is reflected of your spiritual practice. Do you feel that that structure in some way reflects the way that you practice spiritually, or is that just something you choose to do as an artist because you find it visually pleasing?
It is entirely art involved, and it's because I'm really crap whenever it comes to composition, and it's something that I really had to like research and learn a lot about uh, the last year or so since I've been really serious about my artwork. But the lines are, I can't even remember what it's called right now, but it has to do with basically like the proportions of your paper, and there are different ones that you can do, like depending on the size of the piece of work that you're doing or anything like that. But it's things that it makes the painting look more pleasing if they're going with the flow of those lines and stuff that I was doing. And if you look at some of the like the what they call them, the masters, and those paintings that have like, you know, like fucking 20 people in a painting and they're all like lined up in a certain way,
Yeah.
if you put these types of like grids over the top of those, you'll see that they're lined up in that kind of really like geometrical shape. And it's entirely to do with aesthetic, and it's because like I'm a very bad judge of character whenever it comes to compositions in my own artwork. So if I just like freehand something, like it's gonna be like all crooked and like off to the side, and it just doesn't balance out very well unless I have a little bit of help. So it's just a guideline basically that I use whenever working. It does look super badass though, because the one that I use has, it almost looks like two little like pentagrams.
Yeah.
I mean, that does like lend some kind of like inspiration to me, I feel like. That, yeah, it's entirely aesthetic based, really.
That's interesting, because I've never ever done anything like that. I'm always just freehand, just go for it, which is probably why I dislike so much of my own work. But at the same time, I from years ago when I used to do modeling, this sounds awful, but I learned really early on when working with other models that you always want to be on the left hand side of the picture, because that's where people in our culture look, because that's the direction that we read. And if you look at film posters, they will always put the most famous person on the left hand side, because that's the one that they know you will go to the cinema to see, and so they'll put them there because that's where your eye focuses first, and then you look at kind of, so a lot of the time, say it's something like, I don't know, Pirates of the Caribbean, they'll have Johnny Depp there, then they'll have like Keira Knightley there, then Orlando Bloom, then kind of thing. So like that you look through the order of like all the goodies that you're going to get in that way. So a lot of the time when I do paint, I will put things on the left hand side. Not always, sometimes I've consciously done that differently when I'm trying to make the background more pronounced and kind of the main character, I guess you could say. But that is something that I take into consideration, but I've never really taken into consideration the things that you do, and that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, and some of it, like whenever I first started out with composition like that, they do teach you a lot about the golden rule, and the golden ratio, which does have that, you know, you have the big square like on this side of the page, and you have the big spiral that goes throughout the painting. And just like you said in films, if you'll notice, not only like the most famous person on the left side, but also like the golden ratio is more proportioned to where the lines run across horizontally a little closer to the tops and bottoms of the film, I guess. And so you'll find that people's eye lines are like more right here, because that's more aesthetically pleasing than if I'm like right here in the center of the frame. But yeah, I took a course from an artist who is online and who does a lot of work on YouTube, Leilani Joy. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's one of my really favorite, my most favorite artists that's out there right now. And she has an art course that you can take, and it's basically like she went to like a legitimate art school and all that kind of stuff, and it teaches you about like composition and anatomy and all that kind of stuff whenever it comes to like creating art. And it's fairly inexpensive whenever you compare it to the cost of like going to like a university and taking, you know, getting a degree in art. But it was super beneficial to me basically whenever it came to the things that I struggled with the most, which was like anatomy and composition, basically. We have a really good question. So a Cancer Rain Oak Moon says, I'm curious about your opinions on curses, hexes, jinxes. Is there a big difference between them, and what does or would motivate you to use them?
Do you want to go first? I want to think about that for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, sure. As far as the difference between curses, hexes, and jinxes, I mean, I guess you could use those terms kind of interchangeably. That sounds more like a cultural difference than anything to me. I mean, like jinxes, that sounds more like something like a hoodoo practitioner or somebody would say in lieu of saying like a curse on somebody. But for me, what does or would motivate me to use one of these things? And I'm okay with curses and hexes and that kind of thing. I'm not a Wiccan, so I don't really abide by the law of three or anything like that. So, ethically, if I choose to do something like that to somebody, number one, they have to be like really in desperate need of like a huge ass kicking for sure. Like this is not something that I would do on just like somebody that like cuts me off in traffic or anything like that. Like I don't go out and like curse people because they offended me. Nothing like that. These type of things are the things that I do personally when somebody has like fucking like wronged me on like many different personal levels, or has like greatly deeply affected my life in a very negative way, or not even just me, like people that I care about or that I love. And if I feel that this person or whatever isn't getting the justice that they deserve at the time, and I feel like they're going to get away with something that they should have punishment for, which I do believe in, I guess like karma in a way. I don't really want to call it karma, but I think that, what goes around does come around. But sometimes I'm going to help it come around a little bit faster than it might would, on its own. And that's the way that I like to think about it. Like, I think that a lot of people are going to get what they deserve, but sometimes, like, I feel like they need that right now instead of, 20 years from now, whenever they have a string of bad luck or whatever. Like maybe they need to just like stub their big toe like 10 times today or something like that. But like I said, these are things I don't take lightly. Even though I'm joking about it now, I don't take anything like that very lightly. And it has to be something huge and something very detrimental for me to take that kind of action, because generally I'm pretty laid back. Like if people do things that are fucked up, I just, I try not to really worry about it. And if they're doing things to attack me personally, I'm just the type of person that I'd rather just cut you out of my life than like throw a big hex on you or something. So you have to be like a real like shit heap of a person for me to do something like that to you, basically. But yeah, that's how I feel.
I still don't know. I wanted you to go first because I wanted to see if you inspired me with what to say. Like, I don't know the definition of the term jinxes. It's never a jinx. It's never a term that I use. So I'm gonna ignore that one just because I would rather do that than say it wrong. In terms of curses and hexes, I am Wiccan. I'm an eclectic Wiccan, but I am Wiccan, and so I do have a different viewpoint. But at the same time, obviously, there are some very, very horrific things in the world that can happen that have not necessarily happened to me. Well, they haven't. I'm just saying it. They haven't happened to me. I can put up with a lot and still, nothing has ever happened in my entire life. And I don't want to give the illusion that doesn't mean I've never struggled in any way. And it certainly doesn't mean that people haven't been nasty in any way, but I am a very, very, very tolerant person. If you speak to my friends, they will very much back up that I am a extremely tolerant person. Not because I'm so much bigger and better than everybody else and I'm, you know, kind of, oh, whatever, you know, it's not a case of that. It's because I want more for myself. It's because I think about myself more than I think about other people. It's because I think about my vibrational frequency and I think, well, I don't want your shit in my life, basically. I'm doing quite well and I don't really want your crap to ruin what I'm doing. So if you want to be nasty, I mean, there are so many people that if I, it sounds awful, and I'm embarrassed saying it, there are so many people, especially on YouTube, that if I was a pettier person and I didn't have the views that I have, they would definitely have, they probably wouldn't have got a curse, but they've got a bonk on the nose, you know, at least. But the way that I see it is that it's not an attack on them, it's an attack on me, because anytime I behave that way in my own personal viewing, if I chose to behave that way, it would be my own vibrational frequency that I would be lowering. And by doing that, I'd be staggering my own perception of reality. I'd be staggering my connection with what I believe to be the God and Goddess or the universe. I would be lowering my abilities to create, my motivation, my inspiration. And so it's not that I don't do these things out of being such a lovely person. I don't do these things because I'm selfish and I want the best for myself. So it's certainly not a case of me being holier than thou and like I'm just so lovely that I don't do these things. It's because I don't want to drag myself through that when I could be spending my time and energy doing something to achieve. Obviously, if something horrific happened, probably not to me, and I say that, obviously, it would depend on the situation, but I say that knowing myself up until this point in my life. For example, if somebody did something to my mum, I have no idea how I would react, and I can't honestly say that. And I feel it's important for me to be honest about that because that has never happened. If somebody tried to hurt a member of my family or one of my friends, I would like to think that I wouldn't go there, but I don't honestly know.
Yeah, no, and you're right. A large majority of the time why I choose not to do that kind of stuff is because, like, I just don't want to waste my energy on that. Like, usually I'm having a pretty good time. And, like, if I'm in a good mood and optimistic about stuff, like, I don't want to really change that. Or if I'm having, like, really good luck and a lot of things are going well for me, I don't want to acknowledge that type of negativity in my life at that time. So I agree with that fully.
Hi, Liam. Sorry, I just saw one of my friends come up. Hi, Liam. I didn't expect to see him, and I just saw him pop up. Sorry, Maggie, I'm not ignoring you.
No problem. I just wanted to address one more thing. Acantha Rain was talking about how she had seen them in referred to as differences in strength. And I've seen some people do that too. But, you know, I was just, while Mandy was talking, I was looking up the origins of the word, like the etymology and where they came from. And like I said, I think it's more of just a cultural difference because the word curse is actually from Old English. Hex is from German, and jinx, the word jinx is actually more of a newer word coming from like the United States area. Like I said, I think it has to do with like hoodoo and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people can refer to it in various forms of like strengths or whatever, but pretty much they're kind of all, they're definitely synonyms whenever it comes to the word family.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, when I think of hex or curse, I kind of put those two things in the same category. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know, but I put those in the same category. Like I said, in terms of jinx, that's not a word that I use, and it's not a word that I very often. I have heard it, but mainly kind of on the telly and stuff like that. So I have no definition of what the word jinx really means.
Yeah. Well, it says it's from early 20th century, and originally US, so that's probably why you've heard it less than some of the people over here. But yeah, that's all.
Also,
How long have we been on here?
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say Liam Bradbury, he has a SoundCloud. He's actually the person that I'm recording my album with, and he has a SoundCloud, and he has a really awesome pagan album out at the moment. The songs on there are, whether you want to use them for meditation or for ritual, or whether you just want to listen to them on your iPad, iPod, iPad, iPhone, I don't know, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is you people do. He has a really, really great pagan album. He has a SoundCloud. He does like music for lots of different things, whether it's kind of theme tunes for things and things that go with like movies and different things like that. He's absolutely epic. The way that he creates blows my freaking mind. Before I started working with Liam, Liam, can you post the link to your album, please? So that people can have a look at your, or post a link to your SoundCloud, because I'm pretty sure that the album is you have to purchase it. So post a link to SoundCloud so people can see what you can create, so that they know that it's worth a while. But it's so amazing. Before I started working with Liam, I'd written a couple of songs myself. I mean, I've been writing songs for years, but I'd written a couple of pagan songs myself, that he came in and took the backing tracks and just totally recreated them, made my kind of backing tracks just look like Play-Doh in comparison to what he'd done. But he is literally, the stuff that he creates, like you hear all of this stuff in movies like Danny Elfman, like all of these types of things. He is mind-blowing. And his pagan album, like I'm somebody that is quite when it comes to like sponsors, I get messages quite often and emails from like different companies asking me if they pay me, will I say something nice about them in a video, will I recommend something, or will I do a video about them? And I always say no, not because I'm above it, but just because if I want to say something nice about you, I'll say it because I mean it. You don't need to pay me, I'll just say it. Like, I talk a lot, it'll just come out. Whereas yeah, he's just very, very, I think he's from a very musical, talented family, because his brother is very talented as well, but just has that gift, and well worth the money, in my opinion. If you can get the link to his, if he doesn't post it here, if he's just kind of popped in and disappeared, I'll send the link to Maggie to put in the description bar afterwards. But it's so worth it. It's just really beautiful music, like I said, for either ritual, for meditation, or just to have on your phone or something, just to kind of get you in that witchy mood. And the different tracks as well, there's kind of tracks for calming down, and then there's tracks, I don't know if anybody else does this, but sometimes I need to feel my witchy kind of pumping sense. Yeah. I need to get like my energy in my witchiness, and there's tracks for that as well. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. It's on iTunes. He said it won't let him post links, but it's on iTunes or Spotify. I searched Liam Bradbury. Oh, that's sweet.
He says he'll pay me later. Good. You know my PayPal. Yeah, he came right up when you Googled him. That's great. But yeah, so worth it. I don't know if there's anywhere that you can get like sample tracks. I'm sure there is, where you can get like a smidgen of like some of the tracks from the album, but it is so worth it. Like, yeah, highly recommend. Actually, Maggie, I have a question for you, if that's okay, if you don't need to go.
No, absolutely. What's up?
We've been doing this 2 hours. I'm so sorry I've kept you all this time. What is it that when you find, actually, let me think how I want to rephrase this, because that's not how I want to say it. For me as a YouTuber, like, put all the other stuff aside, for me as a YouTuber, obviously there are millions and millions of people on YouTube, and lots of people watch videos and you know, interact and all of that stuff. how is it that you identify between somebody that comments on your videos? Not to say that you're not grateful of that. Obviously, we always are when people comment on our videos. But how is it when you identify from somebody that comments on your videos that you're kind of like, oh, okay, cool, you know, thanks for your support? Or you identify with them and you think, I want to be that person's friend, whether they make videos or not? Like, with you, for me, I very much, whether people have videos or not, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's more helpful when they do have videos, but whether they have videos or not, sometimes I just get this feeling that that person is supposed to be my friend. Does that make sense? And it can be, I can have said a million times, and this is probably the wrong thing to say, but I can have said a million times, oh, you know, I can't be friends with everybody, I can't reply to every comment, there's too many, blah, blah, blah. And then someone will message me and it'll pop up on my phone, or I'll see it online, and there's just something, and they haven't even necessarily said anything different to what anybody's ever said before, but I just get this feeling that this person is going to be my friend. This person is going to be part of my life in some way. And I can remember when I first started the channel that I'm using now, and I think it was November, December 2015 when I discovered your videos for the first time, and you had blue hair.
Yeah.
And I can remember watching your videos, and it wasn't even, I hadn't even watched a whole video. I don't even know if I was halfway through, and I just thought, she needs to be my friend. And it wasn't a case of would she like to be my friend. It was a case of no, I need her some way in my life. She needs to be my friend. And I feel like that with people sometimes on YouTube, and then other friends that I've met over YouTube that haven't had any videos. Sometimes it's just from comments, and I literally just feel like I can feel it. Does that make any sense?
No, absolutely. I think it does. And, you know, especially whenever people take the time to leave a little more like detailed comment. And I think it's pretty easy to tell by the way that some people write, I guess, or the certain words that they use, that that you can relate to them very easily. Because I know for you and I, like, we share a lot of the same things, or a lot of similarities in our lives and that kind of thing. And I think whenever that happens, some part of you kind of recognizes that in the other person. Like, you see a part of yourself in this person, and like, yeah, fuck yeah, they're cool, I want to be their friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a lot of it, is just, you know, seeing that there is a relation already that exists between the two of you. And I identify as someone who is pretty empathic as well. So I would, you know, associate that with it too.
I watched a live stream. It was her first ever live stream. I don't know if you watched the channel Kimball Witchery. And it was her first ever live stream, and I was lucky enough to just kind of be online and catch it as she did it. I've totally forgot why I was telling you that. That's just really blown my mind. Just nice little shout out there from me. Why was I telling you that? I've nearly finished the wine. This is all the wine left in the bottle. Why was I telling you that? Oh, it was because she done a video response to me months before that I'd literally only seen a couple of days before I happened to catch this live stream. And I'd done a video on my channel talking about how a lot of the time people want to see witchcraft videos, and I'm very shocked when people actually want to get to know me, because it's a rarity. And she done a video response to that, and she kind of said that she often feels like when she feels that she could connect with somebody through a video, she's almost embarrassed and kind of nervous to contact them, because she feels like they must get those messages all the time, and like they're probably gonna, you know, find her to be a total weirdo, just like messaging them out the blue, being like, hi, do you want to be my friend? Which I totally understand, because I get that same feeling. I get those people messaging me, but then I also get the same feeling when I message people and I'm like, hi, do you want to be my friend? You know. And I find that funny, and that was something that really kind of made me start thinking about, and this is only very, very recently, but made me start thinking about how we kind of portray ourselves on YouTube, because obviously you don't want to portray yourself as being available to the masses, because nobody has time to reply to every single person that wants to be your best friend. But at the same time, I've made so many really, really good friends that I've met in my life from different countries over YouTube, that I don't ever want to kind of close myself off to those options. And in terms of that, what's kind of your outlook on that? Like, do you struggle with people that want to kind of get to know you far too much for what you're willing to put out? I know that for me, I often put my video, this might sound really, really harsh, and I don't mean it to sound harsh, but I put my videos out on a topic, and then people will ask me questions, which I always encourage, and I'm happy to talk about it in the comment section. But then they'll want more, and I think, well, I've just talked about it. Like, I've already said everything I've got to say on that. Like, I haven't got any more. You know, like, it's an empty bag now, kind of thing. So do you feel that as a YouTuber, or is your experience different?
No, not quite yet. I don't think I have near the following that you do. So I don't really have those people like demanding a lot more from me yet. I mean, I do have people that follow me on social media that act like a little bit like creepery, you know, and I don't know where the line is where you like too many of somebody's posts, and I don't know what it is that like gives me that kind of creepy vibe from these people. But you know, sometimes every now and again you have like maybe like one, maybe two people who are like just getting a little obsessive whenever it comes to what it is you're doing, which is weird because, you know, we put it out there so people will see it and so people will view it. And, you know, the more views that we have, you know, that's great because we're reaching more people with what it is that we want to say. But sometimes you're right, you do get this kind of vibe from some people that is kind of the opposite of that, you know, best friend kind of vibe. And I mostly just, I kind of ignore it right now. And, you know, I've blocked people from things in the past if they get just too intense and they just want too much. And I think it's because, you know, some people forget that, like, you're an actual person, like human being that has, you know, personal privacy and that kind of thing. And even though that you put out a lot of your life on there, because I'm pretty transparent whenever it comes to my life. Like, I talk a lot about personal things. I show, you know, personal rituals and stuff that I do on my page.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much like, I go pretty far out there already. Like, you know, short of like inviting you over to meet me at my house, like, I can't really give any more than I already am. And I feel like people who want more, like, that's what they want. They want, like, you know, that piece of you. Or I actually heard Joanna DeVoe talk about this. And I can't remember what it was on. It was on a video or podcast or something like that. But she talks about the people that, you know, go beyond wanting to be their friend. Like, they want to be you, and they get that really like obsessive behavior whenever it comes to it. But if you get like that on my channel, then I will just block you and not worry about it. I don't give it a lot of thought. You know, I don't get too weirded out. If I get a creepy vibe and people are being like overly obsessive, I just go ahead and get rid of that altogether.
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because, like, for example, if I liked 30 of your pictures on Instagram, you'd be like, oh, Mandy hasn't checked my Instagram for a while, and look, she's being supportive. Yeah. And then if a stranger likes 30 pictures of yours, the same 30 pictures that I've liked, it's kind of like, whew, you know. Yeah. But they're doing this. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
It is. I don't know. And it's just, I don't know. And I feel a lot more threatened by people of the opposite sex for whatever reason. Like, if it's a guy that's doing it, I feel way more creeped out. And I will just go ahead and say that. And it's nothing against men, because I've made male friends on YouTube, you know, already. And it's not that, but I feel a little more intimidated, and that probably has more to do with, you know, the goddamn patriarchy and how we have to deal with that every day. But I don't want to get into like feminism issues or anything like that. But something about that, you know, more masculine energy is a little bit more intimidating. And I had something like that happen today. I've had a ton of people friending me on Facebook the last couple days. I'm not sure why. I don't know what's going on. But I've been adding a bunch of people, and like one person went through and like not only like liked a bunch of my really old stuff, and that's another thing, like when they go back like in deep into your archives and like look at your really old stuff.
2 weeks ago you posted this. Yeah. I do that too. A lot of the time I will, when I start following, like say I just discovered your channel today, I will literally, because I'm somebody that evolves so much and so out loud and so kind of quickly, I have this real kind of know where somebody was like a year ago, where they were 2 years ago, because I always look different and I always feel different. And so I'm that weirdo that scrolls and scrolls and scrolls back down to like 72 weeks ago. And I'm like, oh, like, that's me.
Yeah, but I mean, it's different if you do it to one of my videos, but it's because you're friends, and I know that you've been like looking at all my stuff. Like that's totally different. Like this person went and like commented just like one word comments on like 7 different like pictures from like fucking 3 years ago or something weird like that. I don't know. Just
it does make me uncomfortable when people like I always feel uncomfortable talking about this publicly, because I never want to seem ungrateful, and obviously there are people from all over the world that follow YouTubers or follow Instagrammers and different things like that. I mean, I have an Instagram account, but I don't consider myself an Instagrammer kind of thing. Like a lot of my photos are taken on my crappy phone, and if I can get them so they're not blurry, like that's great kind of thing. But I do have an Instagram account, and I always feel like I shouldn't say anything negative or that could be taken that way publicly, just in case I insult somebody, because I'm not somebody that ever deliberately sets out to insult people. But at the same time, when somebody sends me, I had recently somebody that sent me quite a few messages that just basically said, I like you. Like, nothing flirtatious, but in lots of different ways they said I like you, and it didn't go any further than that, but they commented on about 10 pictures of mine in the space of like a few minutes, just saying I like you. And it wasn't like I fancy you, it wasn't like anything like that, it was just I like you. And I was just kind of like, thanks. I don't know what to do with that. And I think that it, you know, in one way it's a shame society where somebody can show appreciation for something that you think they're weird, and then on the other hand I think that there is only so naive that you can be before it starts to look like it's your fault if something, you know, because we live in a culture where there is a lot of blame put on people, men and women, if scenarios don't turn out so rosy. Then I think you have to be kind of a bit smart when it comes to social media. And so I never really know what to think. I'm somebody that likes to, you know, I am a bit naive in some scenarios and I'm not in others. But I like to see the best in every situation, and I like to think positively and see the innocence in something from most people. But then again, I've been screwed over. I'm that person that always ends up with a stalker. Because I see the innocence in every amount of times that I've had a situation on my hands in my real life. I love how I say that, real life, like YouTube doesn't count. But the amount of times that I've had a stalker or a scenario in my life because I've seen the innocence and everything where there isn't necessarily innocence to be seen. But that's how I like to see the world.
Yeah, well, and that's good, but you know, at the same time, you do have to have boundaries too, because I too, like growing up, there was always a couple of people in my life that got like really obsessed with me, and not in like a friendly kind of way. You know what I mean? Like you said, more like stalkery, like creepy, intimidating kind of way. And I don't know if it's because of that, I'm a little more, I don't want to say like judgmental, but I'm a little more like apprehensive of certain types of people, I guess. And I'm generally a pretty good like judge of character, and you better believe like if somebody's like kind of creeping around my social media, like I'm gonna look at all of your shit too to find out like who you are and like what are you doing here and like why are you liking 5,000 of my pictures and like being a general creeper. And most of the time, like you said, it's fairly innocent, and I don't say anything. And at the first sign of any type of like malicious behavior, really like obsessive, like negatively obsessive behavior, then I just get rid of that person. But yeah, I try to be kind.
Sorry. I'm somebody that online, never in my actual life, but online, actual life, again, I'm disassociating being online to being real life. I'm somebody that online have actually had the total opposite of that. I've had people state that I'm copying so-and-so a couple of times whilst I've been online. Like one, I don't know if you were online at the same time as Charming Pixie Flora.
Yeah.
Now myself and Flora or Marie, we were friends, and we communicated on a regular basis. We had a friendship, we had a dialogue, and obviously people didn't know that from our YouTube channels, and so that was something that was unseen. And I never wanted to kind of come out and be like, excuse me, she's my friend, because I didn't want to. She was much more popular than me at the time, and I didn't want to kind of wave that in front of people's faces, because this was quite a few years ago. But so many people would be like, oh, you're copying Charming Pixie Flora, and it was something that I didn't really understand. I mean, don't get me wrong, I find inspiration just like I do in artwork and in movies, and the same thing everybody else does. But I didn't really understand that, and I've had it a few times, and it's been one of those things that I have just had to kind of accept. I mean, I've had it myself in terms of other people copying me, or certainly finding inspiration in me to the point where I notice, but I don't know, it's a funny situation, but I just I've had to just let it go. I've had to just kind of let it be like, okay, if you want to see it that way, you can see it that way. Maybe if you stay with what I'm doing long enough, you'll see the authenticity in what I'm doing. Don't get me wrong, I'm the first person to tell you that my look, my views, my everything changes on a regular basis, not accidentally, but on purpose, because I love to evolve. Like when I was younger, I used to really, really worry when I was about kind of 17, 18, 19. I used to constantly look at people around me and I'd think, I haven't found my personality yet. Like everybody has a personality and I don't have one yet. And I'm not sure what I think, and I constantly chop and change. And then it was as I got older that I realized actually that is my personality. I'm a constant evolver. That's who I am. And I think sometimes, whether it's whoever, somebody will say, oh, you're doing this or you're doing that, and I think that can be kind of applied to lots of people. But I think that is more a case of somebody just expressing what is going on with them, and whether subconsciously or consciously they are choosing to portray themselves in a certain way that either resembles a certain character, whether it's fictitious or very real. I think that it is just a way of them expressing what is going on with themselves. I think that with a type of person that constantly evolves, it will only ever be a certain period of time that they will be there, because they will constantly move. Because that's what I found about myself. If I was I was actually thinking earlier about doing a video, and I don't know if I'm going to do it. I might do. I was thinking, I was looking at Kira Rose's videos on YouTube, that the girl I told you about, and she had like an evolution of her hair video, and I haven't watched the video, and I was thinking, God, if I did an evolution of my hair and like an evolution of all the different looks that I've had over time, that video would probably be about like an hour and a half long, just of photos and stuff like that, because it's just to kind of experience absolutely everything I can. Excuse me. It's, I understand that to some people it might not necessarily seem authentic, just like certain things to me won't necessarily seem authentic if people do things differently to me. I can't really express, and I assume other people can't express either, the way that I can't even put it into words. When you feel something, you have to express it wholeheartedly, and that is the authenticity in it. It's the need to express it full well knowing that you're going to get crap for it, you're going to get hate for it, you're going to get stick for it, you're going to potentially lose friends for it, but you need to express it because for you in that moment it's so true, and that is an aspect of who you are. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why you and I are very good friends is because I'm exactly that same way whenever it comes to like constantly evolving. And the best way that I can think to say it is that whenever I'm learning about something that really resonates with me, I become that thing. You know, even if is for just a certain amount of time, however long it takes me to like fully understand whatever it is I'm learning about, like I will fully, you know, become that thing. And it was something that I struggled with because, like you said, like I personally, for a long time, I felt like, God, I can't stick with anything. Like I'm such like a flaky jerk. Like I can't just stick to one thing and like be that thing.
The best way I have ever found to explain it is in the movie Wanderlust with Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston. And have you seen that movie? And there's a section where he says to her, I'm in an adult relationship with a person who hasn't found their major yet. And that is how I felt for such a long time. I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like if I was stoned or something, you know, I don't do drugs, but if I did when I was watching that, I'd have been like, whoa, you know, because that's very much how I felt time before I realized actually that is my personality. My personality is the chameleon. I am that person that has to experience everything, not just from a perspective point of view of observing, but actually playing that role for a certain time.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think the people that like have issues with that and like want to call you out for being inspired by certain people or certain things that they see online, I think they are I think that's kind of immature, because I mean, nobody in the spiritual community in the last 50 years or so like is teaching anything new than has been taught before them. You know what I mean? Like none of this shit is new. Like you can say it as many different ways as you want to, but like this is all stuff that has been said over and over and over again. And just because you're saying the same thing that somebody said, you know, on a video 2 weeks ago doesn't mean that you're copying them. And I think that's a really stupid and like childish way to act and to behave, is to call people out on things like that. Because I don't know. And I feel it's got to be people that are younger. And if it's not, then, you know, they've got to have some sort of behavioral issue or something. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but that's just how I feel. Because, I mean, we're all here to learn, and we're all sharing, you know, hopefully valid information. And as long as you're saying things that are, you know, your opinion on the subject, or factual information that you can find on historical, whatever, then that's fine. It doesn't matter that somebody said it, 2 minutes ago. You can say whatever you want to. It's, freedom of speech, and it's not, people don't have a copyright on, their thoughts and the things that they say. If they're just putting out for free online, then they can say, you can say the same ideas and share the same ideas that other people have. And that's not copying, it's just sharing information with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's so funny, the amount of time, I think it swings and roundabouts as well, because the amount of times that I go to a channel of somebody, whether it's you or whether it's one of the other channels that I watch, and I feel so inspired and I think, I need to do a video response on that topic immediately, because it's just something that is bursting from within me. And then I'll go to another channel and they will have a video on a topic that I literally posted a couple of days ago, and I'm sure that and they might have really, really similar views to me, and I'm sure that they haven't copied my video. I'm sure they haven't stolen my views. Like, what would be the point in that? Like, you and me, for example, we've answered several questions throughout this, or we've answered quite a few throughout this live stream, and sometimes we've answered very, very similarly, and sometimes we've had totally different opinions. And we can see logically, and everybody watching can see logically, the value of having similar opinions and the value of having different opinions. So I think that, to kind of go somewhere and think, oh, that person is definitely copying me, and to have enough kind of, to have a high enough thought of yourself that you're the only person in existence that's ever thought of something that someone else must be copying you. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say I've never thought this about anybody. I've been to people's channels and I thought, well, that's very similar to something I've just said, and so's that video, and so's that video, and I thought, have they been flicking through my content? But then I think, like, the chances that this person on the globe that lives across the other side of the world just happens to have similar viewpoints to me are probably more than likely higher than they just copied my videos. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very difficult to be original these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that things like, plagiarism is definitely real. And if somebody goes and, like, word for word makes the exact same video, like, absolutely, that's copying that person.
Don't get me wrong, if somebody, like, for example, like, obviously I do courses and workshops and different things like that. If I found that somebody had literally, like, bought my course, for example, like one of the courses that I do, and then stolen what I'd done in terms of content for a course and then put it up for sale on their own website, I'd be like, excuse me. I wouldn't be overly happy with that. But in terms of, like, a video opinion, and like you said, with free sharing that we do on YouTube, I think that's kind of, come on. But it's everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe, and I think that sometimes in your path, in your life, for whatever reason, you need to believe certain things, and then a different perspective you'll believe other things, and that's fine. And I just hope that you don't hurt too many people on the way.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%.
I'm gonna have to go for another week, so I'm absolutely bursting. I do apologize. This wine has gone straight through me.
Do you want to go ahead and end it here, Mandy?
It's up to you. If you want to carry on, I'm more than happy to come back, or if you want to end it here, we have gone on, so it's absolutely fine.
Let's go ahead and say goodnight to everybody, and I will let you go really fast. But thanks for coming on my channel, Mandy. It was great having you here, and I hope you come back. Absolutely. Well, you have a good night, Mandy, and I will see all of you guys listening to us later. And please stay in touch, everybody. We love you. Bye.
Bye.